Hey there, and welcome to Becoming More Me, the podcast for busy minded, dare I say, ADHD entrepreneurs that want to be more and do less. These episodes are here to inspire you to become more of the person you feel called to be, to slow down, to let pleasure lead the way, and to let it be easy. Because it's only the conditioning that we've received that makes us feel that we have to struggle and strive through everything. I'm your host, Teresa Lear-Levine. I'm an EFT master, a hypnotherapist, an international best-selling author, and I absolutely love helping people to do the work that gets them out of their own way and that empowers them to reclaim their power, shed light on their shadows, and just really enjoy this never-ending journey of becoming. And my guest today is Yeliena Theofilatos, and she reached out to me a while back on Instagram. We started a conversation. It led to me being a guest on her podcast, Peace Grows Here, and now here she is as a guest on Becoming More Me. So I'm excited to introduce you to her. She's an anxiety therapist. She is the CEO and founder of My Blooming Heart Hypnotherapy and Coaching. And she combines hypnosis with nervous system regulation and helps entrepreneurial women to root into unshakable self-trust. Doesn't that sound good? I love that. We share so many commonalities in the ways that we help people and also differences. And I love having these kind of discussions with other hypnotherapists and really shedding light more on this modality, which covers so much and which also has a lot of misunderstanding wrapped around it. So today we are going to talk about how she got into it, how she enjoys her life in Hawaii, where she has her practice, and what led her there, because she originally started in Russia, and how hypnotherapy has played a part in her journey. So all sorts of exciting things to cover, and it all starts now. Hi, Yeliena. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Thank you. I am so excited about it as well.
And I know you said you were a little sleep deprived last night, so our excitement sounds a little different, but I know you're excited to be here.
That's for sure. I noticed that too.
I would love it if we could just start by you sharing a little bit about who you are. Not necessarily work, but like what you love, who you spend your time with, where you live, some just quirky little tidbits about you.
Thank you. Yes, for sure. I originally from Russia, born and raised, and then when I was 20, I decided to change my path drastically because I was not in love with my life, what it was going in particular. So I moved to New York by myself with my best friend, not really having a plan, but just going there for the summer. But midway, decided, oh, actually, I'm staying. And fast forward 9 years after that, I moved to Hawaii because I was just tired of this beautiful city. And here I am now in Hawaii still. Very grateful for escaping the New York City before COVID happened
Oh,
and
yeah.
landing here. I love my garden. I love my cats. I was dreaming about them last night. My husband, meditation, Buddhism, hypnosis, psychology, all of those like very juicy places for me. And I love my friends. I really good to have a good crew of them here finally. We can kind of collected good people around us and we have a lot of potlucks. We like to cook. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. I love it. Love it. Love it. So what do you like to grow in your garden?
Everything that grows well here. I made a mistake when I just moved here. I'm like, I'm gonna grow everything. And soon I learned that you're just supposed to grow what likes this kind of tropical, subtropical climate and not necessarily beets or cabbage.
They're not intended to grow well in Hawaii, huh?
Nope.
What is your best crop there? What's the thing that grows the most prolifically for you?
Citrus, actually. Grapefruits. Our grapefruits are like, whoa, they're just like going off. But they feel like the citrus here where we are just like almost nonstop producing. Like even before we take the harvest of the tree, they're already like popping new flowers and
Oh,
making new
wow.
fruit. So
Oh,
kind
I
of
love the
very
smell
grateful
of
for
citrus
that.
trees.
Yes.
Smells so
Yes.
good. And they don't grow as well here for sure. So
Mhm.
for each place, there is something special that loves to grow there. So I know we both share hypnotherapy as a passion and part of our
Mhm.
business. And I had a
Mhm.
great time coming on your show and talking about it along
Yay.
with EFT. And I would love to know more about what led you into hypnotherapy and what brought that into your life.
Uh, sure. I was in New York. I was like 25 or something, dating an amazing man whose younger sister is a very well-known hypnotherapist. And she was really trying to keep me away from grad school. She was like, don't go there. I was like psychology major. I did my bachelor's in New York in psych. And she's like, oh, F the system. Just stay with me, take the course. You'll be doing pretty much the same work if you want to be doing something like this. So I did her course like a few different times, loved it. It was like so mind blowing to me in terms of the modality of how quickly we can help someone and how we can empower them to use their own minds in such beautiful, amazing ways. To this day, I remember the videos that she was showing us on the very last day of the training of how there was a lady giving birth by just singing her way through it. She was self hypnotizing herself. She couldn't use any, painkillers because she was allergic. And she was just imagining herself playing piano and
Oh,
singing. And that was her way. And for me, it was like, whoa, it was
beautiful.
just inspiring in terms of not even my personal work, but how we can work with our minds is such empowering way. So that was my first introduction to hypnosis right then.
Yeah. I mean, the mind is crazy powerful, and I think a lot of times we definitely discount that and overlook
For
the
sure.
power of it, both
Mhm.
when we're resisting things and when we're trying to do things, and forget
Mhm.
that there's this huge part of it that is running the show underneath the surface that most people never even try to deal with. I mean, if I think about the majority of people on this planet, most of them
Mhm.
probably have never actually contemplated their subconscious mind.
Right. It takes like slowing down and some self-reflection, introspection, and just dropping in and making space for what's wants to emerge. And as a culture, we're not particularly comfortable with making space. We're all like, fast forward, do the
Oh,
next
yeah.
thing, do the next thing, do the next thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know we speak the same language there because I'm all about slowing down as the fastest means to speed up. And, and it's so counterintuitive. And I'm the first one to say, like, oh, it was frustrating and difficult for me. And it still is
Mhm.
sometimes. It still is. I have that ingrained hustle, strive, grind, prove yourself, perfectionistic, like all those underpinnings. And yet
Mhm.
we can change. I mean, like if I can do it and I can learn how to embrace slowness and pleasure and a nourished nervous system, I think anybody can.
I believe so. Yeah, I feel like that's also what you and I share, the fascination with the nervous system regulation. I call myself nervous system enthusiast because I'm obsessed with it ever since I learned about it. I'm like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. Finally, we have a language to talk about the body in such a way because
Yeah.
for so long in psychology, people only talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, which is like your thoughts, your thoughts, your thoughts. Like, what about the rest of it, which is so much more ancient and so much more evolved and sophisticated if you think about it in terms of the intelligence? And body will always kind of, I feel like emotions have a tendency to take over and drive us, and it's not anything negative, but cognitive behavioral therapy kind of, no, we're rational. Like we are not as rational as we think, really.
We'd like to think we're rational. We'd like to think that we're making decisions that are logical or that any of that actually matters anyway, but we really aren't. We really aren't. So, when you first started learning about hypnotherapy from your hypnotherapist friend, did you try it
Mhm.
yourself?
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely tried it. I was, we were practicing on each other, like the people in the class, and I took it home. I was already meditating for quite a number of years by then. So for me, it was just a natural kind of transition. Like, oh, that's just like the place I go to when I meditate. So that was familiar already.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I think a lot of people get confused when they start thinking about doing hypnotherapy because we've been indoctrinated with all these stage shows and all of this flashy stuff that is cool and is actually, they're in hypnosis and everything else,
Right.
but it's definitely not what I think you and I are doing when we're working with people. So what's your favorite way
Sure.
to explain hypnotherapy to people? Like when somebody comes to work with you and they're like, I've never done it before, what's going to happen? Like, how do you like to explain it?
That's a great question. I explain it as a guided meditation on steroids.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. I always find that the people I'm working with, like, they want to understand that they're still in control,
Mm-hmm.
that
For
they're not
sure.
handing over control, that I'm not reprogramming their subconscious. It's not
Mm-hmm.
me. I can guide them through doing it, but that's their work. Like, I'm just there to facilitate it.
For sure. Yeah. I always say that everything that I say, it's an invitation, it's a possibility. I'm just introducing something into your frame of reference, which is new, and we're kind
Yeah.
of shaking it up a little bit, and it's up to you what you want to allow to land. It's your call.
Yeah. And I know you like to blend neuroscience in with things. So how does that
Mhm.
look for you when you're practicing?
Neuroscience, I really love neuroscience of how anxiety is born in the brain. That's the one that stands out for me in particular in my work because anxiety did my personal jam, so to say, and the neuroscience that I found really helped me first and foremost. I don't blend them per se as much. Like when I'm in my session, those would be two different sections of like, oh, now I'm educating you about the neuroscience, and now we're doing
Gotcha.
hypnosis. Although, if you think about it, it's all related to the
Yeah.
pathways in the brain.
Right.
So we're still talking about the same thing, but in different ways.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. And have there been any like big breakthrough moments that you've experienced as far as working with anxiety or depression using these modalities?
For sure, for sure. In terms of anxiety, both hypnosis and neuroscience have been really helpful. In terms of the neuroscience, the realization that came to me after reading the book that I just love, Unwinding Anxiety by psychiatrist Dr. Jad,
Mm,
is how it's perpetuated by our habit of worrying. And when I say word habit, it's not just like, oh, something that I do and something that is like not really great for me. No, there is actually underpinning to it in our brain that drives us to engage into worrying and overthinking as something as we think could have a survival value. Our brain latches on to overthinking and worrying and
yes.
tries to fill up that space of uncertainty that we're so uncomfortable with. And for me, it was a definite breakthrough for myself to just notice, oh, I'm not necessarily helping myself when I'm worrying, even though it feels like problem solving, quote unquote. We like, listen, in theory, we're problem solving, but we're not. And that was like one out of many like big takeaway that I definitely apply for myself when I'm faced with uncertainty in my life. I definitely make sure that I don't go into thinking and problem solving mode right away. I regulate my nervous system first. And then I'm so much more capable of actually problem solving instead of worrying that I
Yeah,
used
because you're
to mistake
solution
those.
focused instead of
Yeah,
focusing on the issue, which just gives you more of the issue and so on and so forth. Yeah.
exactly.
Do a lot of your clients experience that kind of like rumination and anxiety?
Yeah, in different ways. In different ways. There's always some kind of uncertainty present in a room. It's not necessarily the same kind that I experience, but yeah. And for them, it's also groundbreaking to realize that, first of all, worrying is not their best friend. It's actually hurting them. But there's also a lot of self-compassion that can come from realizing that it's a habit. It's not just something that you can snap out of, especially if you have been going for worrying as your strategy all
Right?
along. It takes some time to like unwind and actually learning about how it's created in the brain.
Yeah, beautiful. What are some of the common things that you tend to help people with in your practice?
Anxiety, of course, is the biggest one in my private practice. I also work with all kinds of people who work through the door of the group psychotherapy practice that I'm in with a bunch of other psychotherapists. When we take insurance and etc. It's more like out there. And in that world, I work with oh my goodness, it's like so much relationship, depression, anxiety, self-esteem, motivation, and you name it. I'm so confident, and it's nice to be able to say that in my approach that I can apply to pretty much almost everything. That
Yeah.
I don't shy away in that particular world from working with anybody, but in my own practice, it's usually female entrepreneurs, anxiety, self-esteem, nervous system regulation related.
Yeah. Do you still do a lot of work with helping people to quit smoking with like smoking cessation?
I have a couple of clients now, yes, and one of them have just 5 days without smoking. She was totally
Yay!
blown away. Totally did not expect that to happen. So yeah, definitely that's big passion of mine for sure.
That's awesome. Really cool. What are some of your favorite practices for cultivating like self-compassion, like you talked about? Are there any things that you like to bring into play there?
Mm. In terms of self-compassion, the biggest, I can't necessarily call it a practice. It's more so like a overall mindset of understanding where our issues, quote unquote, coming from, and not necessarily digging deep into your childhood traumas or whatever. Maybe that kind of understanding is important as well, and it is, especially if something major has happened. Probably it's better to do it with somebody else if that's something major like that was going on there. But just overall understanding for me in my life, when I just reflect and introspect and realize, oh, okay, this is where it's coming from. This pressure, let's say, to work and produce and perform, it's not necessarily of my own making or doing. I live in a society that is definitely programming me, so to say, to always strive, to always feel less of, to always do this and this and this and that. And that doesn't necessarily allow me to sit back on a couch and do nothing, but it gives me a perspective and a context of what's going on. And then I'm like, okay, all right, how am I feeling about it? Is my nervous system is is that what it's about? Is that what I'm here to do? Is that what my biological needs are? And again, looking into the nervous system perspective, how we're all about connection, and it's okay to want to play and rest and restore because this is our biological imperative. Also brings that another dose of like self-compassion towards myself and what I actually need on any given day. All kinds of understanding about how we operate and what are those forces inside and out that shape us.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever noticed, I know I have, that there's sometimes some unexpected benefits that come along with nervous system regulation or with hypnotherapy? Like, have you ever experienced anything like that where somebody comes to work on one thing and they start experiencing benefits in other areas?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm always amazed by how like we start off by talking about one thing and then we end up talking about completely something else, even in the same session. My mentor, one of my mentors in coaching, called it growing potatoes. We start with this topic and then we grow potato, grow potato, and it goes on and like becomes a whole bunch of like, oh, how did we get here? And I allow clients to
I like that
not
analogy.
drive
I
it.
like it more
Yeah.
than the peeling the onion one, which I still haven't quite figured out why we're peeling the onions. But the potatoes, because like when you harvest potatoes, which I've done a couple, they
Hmm.
all kind of come up as one thing, don't
Right.
they? Am I getting that right?
Right.
Okay, I'm just making
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, I
Like
think so.
I'm not a
Yeah.
potato farmer, so I'm just making sure that I'm remembering this correctly. But I know there's been a couple of times that like I've grown them like as a kid and as an adult, and they all. I like that analogy. I'll use that one again. That's a good one, and it makes sense. It does kind of like,
Mhm.
or we hear like daisy chaining is I think how they
Mm,
put it with
mhm,
when I was going through my EFT master certification. That's how
mhm.
my mentor would always put it, like they're creating this daisy chain of these things that are all kind of connected and, kind of beautiful together, and they all complement each
Mhm.
other. But yeah, I love that. It's always surprising to me how much we overlook, kind of like we were talking about earlier, about the power of our thoughts and our mind, but how much we overlook the mind-body connection.
Mhm.
Like it's interesting because sometimes I'll be working with somebody on a past memory or some kind of trauma, and things in
Mhm.
their physical body start to feel better.
Mhm.
That might not
Mhm.
even be related,
Mhm.
not even like related to that chakra or anything else, but like
Right.
I sprained my ankle yesterday kind of thing, and now we're working on past
Mhm.
trauma, and because my nervous system is becoming regulated and my stress
Mhm.
hormones are going down, it is now feeling
Mhm.
better. And we
Yes.
really like discount the connection there. It's so
Mhm.
strong, and it's so big. So, you ever have anything like that
Yeah.
happen or anything weird like that?
Not in a while, not anything I can think of. Although I just want to add to that what you said about mind body connection. When you
Yeah.
think about hypnosis, we think about it all like, oh, it's all about the mindset. But I believe that because it allows us to actually experience, go inside versus just talking about something, it's very much somatic and body based. And this is the power of hypnosis over the just the talk therapy. When people ask me like how do I explain hypnosis, what you were just asking me earlier today, I usually tell them that it adds this dimension of experientiality to
Mm-hmm.
what we do. It
Yes.
allows us to like to feel into the change more so than just talk about it. And when we're feeling into the change, it lands differently. It like lands on the level of our body. And it makes so much sense that nervous system regulation just something that we add on to that because it creates a beautiful synergy in between them too.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you like to balance your life as a hypnotherapist or psychotherapist and your own like well-being and mental health and things? Like where do you find that balance? How do you take care of yourself?
That's a very important topic right now. Because currently I am the funny thing is like I did tell you just before we start recording, I'm preparing for two retreats. One of them is virtual, one of them in person, and takes a lot out of me in terms of like communication, going to see the locations, making
Yeah.
sure that they like look as good as and smell as good as they look in the picture because I'm in Hawaii and we have a mold problem. So I went to a
Uh,
few places. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm so happy that I actually went there physically to like be there. So it's been an interesting moment to observe myself. Like, okay, I just added a little bit of this on my plate, which I didn't expect. And how do I balance it out? And to be honest, the best thing that helps for me to me is my meditation practice in the morning and exercising. That's just something I like. I when I just started my business, I'm like, I'm going all in. Everything else goes on the back burner. Of course, like many of people out there, I hurt myself just like mentally and physically just by doing that. And now every time my mind is like, oh, why don't you skip this meditation? You can be so much more productive in this way. I'm like, oh. Oh, we're not going there again. So just keeping those vows to myself, and my day can go pretty busy and crazy, but as long as like I make sure that I do this a little bit of time in the morning for myself and slow down when I even if I can take the pause like throughout the day, I sometimes like, oh, I'm gonna wash my dishes slowly, like just changing the pace of what I have to do anyway really brings a lot of juiciness to my nervous system, even by doing that.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that you can do that with like a everyday chore that you need to do anyway and just
Yeah.
make it a little bit more enjoyable. And I love that you're honest about, hey, sometimes we don't take the best care of ourselves is really the honest to goodness truth. But it's okay because we can remind ourselves and we can change course and,
Mhm.
it's okay. I always say it's really important to me to like walk my talk, like to go and see a hypnotherapist, to, practice
Mhm.
EFT with other practitioners, to do all of that. And yet also sometimes I go for weeks and I don't do it, you know,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's okay too. But I think that part of like walking our talk is coming back to it, not
Mhm.
abandoning ship and just recognizing that, yeah, sometimes it's not as easy as it looks.
For
It's
sure.
rarely ever as easy as it looks, but we keep coming back to it over and over again. Are there any other practices that you love, like outside of like meditation and hypnotherapy
Mhm.
and other somatic and nervous system things? Like, are there any other things that you love to practice or love to work into your coaching?
Coaching. I think hypnosis and nervous system regulation kind of covers it all.
Yeah.
Like for that I teach people, there is a lot of there
Yes, there is.
to do.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I would say so. And just it's not so much of a practice, but more so like just inviting people to listen to their nervous system and create spaciousness in their life, whatever that looks like for them, even though it's exactly counterintuitive to what we're just talking about, like how times like life takes over and we like can't do that. But ultimately, it is my invitation for however you want and can to find those time to slow down because I feel
Yeah.
like our nervous system creates that a lot.
Yeah. I don't think that I would have the ability to go through those times when I am still really pushing myself and maybe not doing as much self-care as I should be if I didn't also have
Mhm.
the times when I was. Like,
Right,
I
for
think they
sure.
set me up for that. So, yeah, sometimes it feels like old habits or not my best
Hmm.
way of like, presenting myself to the world, but I still actually kind of really love those like superwoman days when it feels
Yay.
like I can do everything. Like I had one of those last
Mhm.
week and it was like the first day of summer and the kids were off and
Uh-huh.
I felt like I was
Mm.
like nailing it as a parent, nailing it as a coach, onboarding
Wow.
new clients, getting great
Mhm.
like stuff
Mm.
out in my social media,
Woohoo.
communicating well with my team. Like it was like firing on all cylinders, planning
That's
vacation, like
amazing.
all in in the
Wow.
same day, making food from scratch. Like I was doing all the things in this like
Mm.
14-hour period. And then
Mhm.
by Friday, I was like, oh, it was Wednesday. Friday, I was like, I think I'm done. Like, I think now I just need to watch a show and sit on my butt for like 3 hours.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it balances out.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it does. Do you use hypnosis much in your own life for yourself these days?
I do listen to, I guess not listen to, talk myself through it, listen to my own self-talk. When I have like a red light therapy kind of thing for my face, for my
Hmm.
rosacea, and I make sure that I make it into the time when I either meditate or like hypnotize myself to really get the benefits of like I'm just imagining this light healing me, blah
Hmm.
blah 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 blah, like, and it's always creative and I never kind of know where it's going to go, but it's more so again inviting me to envision what do I want to feel instead of what I don't want to feel, because a lot of times like, oh, it's going to be this day, I'm going to have so much to do. I'm like, okay, wait. Let's rewind.
Yeah.
Let's just imagine and envision and tap into like, what do you want? I'm like, oh, okay, what do I want? All right, let's do that. So
And it's
yeah, that's
amazing the
like
way the universe will rearrange for you.
mhm.
Like we go into days all the time expecting that because something's on our calendar or whatever else,
Right.
that that's what's going to happen. And, sometimes it is, but there's a
Mhm.
whole lot of
Yeah,
wiggle room for things to go in a million different directions with thought and a little bit of support from the universe leaning into it.
yes, for sure.
Yeah. So, where is the best place for people to find out more about your work or work with you?
Instagram, where you and
Instagram.
I met. If you
Yes,
have
love
Instagram,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah. My blooming heart hypnotherapy, all one word.
Love that. Love that. And are you currently taking on new clients?
I can take a couple more.
Yeah.
That will be it. Yeah.
All right. So if this is interesting to you, you better hop over to Instagram and start a little conversation in the DMs with Miss Yelena here. And I know that you'll take good care of those people that are aligned to do this work with you for sure. Is there any closing thoughts or anything that you would like to leave listeners with as we finish up the episode?
I just want to empower everybody to remember, we haven't talked about it, but the power of your breath and
Mm.
taking a few of those deep ones, because that's what our nervous system wants to do. I don't know if you notice when it like reboots itself, it's like it's a deeper
Yes.
breath that
Oh,
is
I just got one
automatic.
right now with your reminder. That's another one of those things that I always find so funny that sometimes even having that knowledge and the
Hmm.
reminder is what gets it. Like, I don't know, sometimes I can make it until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the day before I take one of those super nice deep breaths. And I'm like, why have I not been doing this all day long? Like at least like a few times an hour or something. Like I'm grateful for the
Exactly.
fact that I have very spiritual business coaches who I meet with
Hmm.
and have group meetings with many times a week. And we usually start out meetings with dropping into a little breath work or taking a few of those nice deep breaths. And what a difference that makes. Starting a session with a client with a nice deep breath.
Hmm.
Silly, silly, simple, but yes, thank you for the reminder. I
So
know that
good.
everyone listening to this podcast at this minute marker has taken a nice deep breath and you
Woohoo.
have done your duty for the day in reminding us to just inhale that nice deep inhale. For me, it's usually one of those ones that then I'm going to do it now because I'm talking about it. I
Mhm.
have yawn.
Mhm.
I start to, because
Yeah.
you take one of those deep inhales and then your body wants to
Mhm.
release some more and you like
Mhm.
naturally yawn.
Yes.
Which I'm always the
Mhm.
person that I always say, like, you're never going to offend me with a yawn because as an EFT practitioner, a yawn is one of the best signs that we're releasing energy blockages. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
am
Mhm.
thrilled when my clients just yawn their heads off through a session, never offended. I'm like, just keep it coming, just yawn your heart out. But yes, all
Yes,
attached to the
yes.
breath. So thank you for that beautiful
Beautiful.
reminder. And
Thank
thank
you.
you for being here today with me and sharing this time together and sharing your story. And
Mhm.
thank you all for listening. I know we all have so many choices when it comes to podcasts. So thank you for tuning in today to learn about the subconscious mind and to get to know my friend Yelena.
Woohoo. Thank you.
Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.